There's a silent lie they taught you from a young age. Explaining too much is a sign of maturity, and reacting quickly is a sign of strength. But the truth, and this might hurt to hear, is that every time you explain yourself, you diminish yourself. And every time you react, you give yourself away. While you're trying to be understood, someone is learning exactly how to control you. While you're trying to defend yourself, someone is testing how far they can go with you. And what's the most dangerous? You don't even realize you're losing the game, because the world doesn't reward those who feel the most. It rewards those who move with precision. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Power lies not in convincing. It lies in controlling the moment. It's not about talking more. It's about saying less and meaning more. What if I told you that there are rules, silent, almost invisible, that make someone impossible to manipulate? Rules that make people respect you, without you having to ask, explain, or prove anything. Today, you'll understand why stopping reacting and stopping explaining yourself isn't a sign of weakness. It's the beginning of a type of power that most people never access. And when you understand that, you'll realize it wasn't the world that was against you. You were the one playing it wrong all along. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos. It's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now, not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He learned early, perhaps too late, that every emotional reaction is a disguised confession. Every time someone reacts impulsively, without thinking, they are handing the other person a detailed map of their weaknesses. It's almost as if they were saying, "Here, this is exactly where you can hurt me." And the most curious thing is that most people don't even realize this is happening. They believe they are defending themselves, when in fact, they are exposing themselves. Machiavelli already observed this when talking about decisions based on real human nature. Man, when provoked, tends to react before thinking. And that is precisely why the pause becomes a weapon. Not just any pause, but an intentional, strategic pause, full of awareness. 5 seconds. It seems like a short time, but it completely changes the game. In that interval, you cease to be predictable, and when someone can't predict you, they lose control. He also realizes that reacting is easy. Anyone reacts. It's instinctive, almost automatic, like pulling your hand away when it touches fire. But those who desire power, and not just survival, need to master this impulse. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches exactly that. It doesn't matter how things should be, it matters how they are. And the reality is that the world tests you all the time. A snide comment, a subtle criticism, a provocation disguised as a joke. All of these are tests, and most fail because they react. Now imagine a simple situation. Someone provokes you in public. They expect a quick, emotional, perhaps even defensive response. But you remain silent. You look, breathe, and respond calmly, or don't respond at all. At that moment, something changes. Control slips from the other person's hands and returns to you, because the game was never about what was said, but about who maintains emotional control of the situation. Over time, he begins to understand that this pause is not just a technique, it's a philosophy of power. The end justifies the means, and the means here is simple. Not reacting, but the effect is devastating. Because when you don't react, you create discomfort in the other person. They expected a response, a confrontation, validation, and when that doesn't come, they lose. It's like playing chess against someone who simply doesn't respond to obvious moves. From there, something even more powerful emerges, the ability to choose when to act. Not to act impulsively, but strategically. This is virtu and fortuna in action, the ability to shape the moment to your advantage. And curiously, the more he masters this pause, the less he needs to explain himself, because the silence begins to speak for him. And this opens a dangerous door, the next trap that almost everyone falls into without realizing it. He realizes over time, and sometimes with a certain discomfort, that over-explaining isn't a sign of clarity. It's a sign of need, a need for approval, for acceptance, to be understood. And here's the point that almost no one dares to admit. Whoever needs to be understood automatically places themselves below the one who judges. It's a silent inversion of power. Machiavelli already implied this when discussing the appearance of virtue. It's not always about being understood, but about how you position yourself. When someone starts justifying every decision, every choice, every attitude, what they're really saying is, I need you to validate this. And the world, which operates based on politics guided by reality, not ideals, responds brutally. Whoever asks for validation loses authority. Simple as that. Because real authority doesn't ask for permission, doesn't ask for understanding. It imposes itself through action. He starts noticing this in the most common situations. A delay, for example. Most people automatically go into explanation mode. It was the traffic, it was this, it was that. But those who master the game respond differently. They don't go into long justifications, they don't try to convince anyone, they simply acknowledge and move on. Or even better, they act so consistently over time that an explanation becomes unnecessary. This is the calculated use of force, not in the brute sense, but in the psychological sense. It's knowing that every word has weight and that talking too much dilutes that weight. Now, think of a leader, someone who makes difficult decisions. They don't stop to explain every move. They decide, execute, and stay the course. This isn't arrogance. It's clarity. It's understanding that decisions based on real human nature require firmness, not justification. Because the more you explain, the more room you open for questioning, and those who open too much room lose control of their own framing. And this is where the turning point happens. He understands that silence is not absence, it's a stance. Not explaining oneself doesn't mean being cold or distant, but rather selective. It's choosing when to speak, and especially when not to speak. It's avoiding being hated without falling into the trap of trying to please everyone. Because pleasing everyone is the quickest way to lose respect. Better to be feared than loved, but above all, better to be respected than explained. And curiously, when he stops explaining himself, something unexpected happens. People begin to fill the silence on their own, and most of the time, they project more value than any explanation could ever convey. That's when he realizes, true power isn't in speaking more, it's in saying less and meaning more. And when that becomes natural, an even more dangerous skill emerges, knowing when to ignore completely. He discovers something that at first seems counterintuitive, but then becomes impossible to ignore. Not every battle deserves a response. In fact, most don't. The world is full of people trying to provoke, test, elicit reactions, and whoever reacts plays exactly the game the other person wants. Indifference, when used well, is not weakness. It's a silent form of dominance. Machiavelli already pointed to this when discussing constant adaptability. Knowing when to act is important, but knowing when not to act is pure power. Because when someone tries to hurt you and you simply ignore them, you break that person's mental script. They expected conflict, resistance, some kind of validation, and when they find nothing, they short-circuit. It's like talking to an echo that doesn't respond, and that, for the human ego, is extremely uncomfortable. He begins to test this in practice, in simple situations. A provocative message, ignored. An ironic comment, absolute silence. A clear attempt to get attention, no reaction. At first it seems strange, almost as if he were losing. But then something interesting happens. The one who provokes begins to insist more. Then he starts to get irritated. And finally, he exposes himself. It is at this moment that he understands the calculated use of force in its most elegant form. It's not about attacking, it's about letting the other person wear themselves down. This is politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The human ego needs a response to sustain itself. Without a response, it collapses. And the most curious thing is that the more you ignore, the more value you seem to have, because deep down, attention is currency. And whoever distributes attention indiscriminately, automatically devalues themselves. But there's a detail that separates common indifference from strategic indifference. It's not ignoring out of insecurity or escape, it's ignoring by conscious choice. He's not avoiding confrontation because he can't face it. He's avoiding it because it's not worth it. That's virtù and fortuna, choosing where to invest energy and where to simply withdraw presence. And when this skill is consolidated, he realizes something even deeper. Whoever ignores controls the rhythm of the interaction. Whoever reacts follows the other's rhythm. And controlling the rhythm is controlling the game. This is where he begins to understand that it's not enough to not react or not explain himself. Something more is needed. It's necessary to master the very field where the game takes place. Because, in the end, it's not the one who responds best who wins. It's the one who defines the rules from the beginning who wins. He begins to realize something that completely changes his perspective on any interaction. People don't just discuss ideas, they compete for control of the context. Whoever defines the meaning of what is happening defines the outcome. That's framing. And most people lose before even realizing they've entered the game, because they accept the other person's framing without questioning. Machiavelli already taught, albeit indirectly, that decisions based on real human nature require control of the narrative. If someone accuses you, for example, and you defend yourself, you've already accepted the role of the guilty party, even if you're right. That's the classic mistake. The person thinks they're defending themselves, but in reality, they're playing within the scenario created by the other person. And when you play on the other person's field, you're already at a disadvantage. He begins to apply this to real-life situations. Someone tries to belittle him in a conversation, perhaps with a veiled criticism. The common reaction would be to justify oneself, argue, prove the opposite. But he does it differently. He ignores the framing and creates his own. Instead of responding to the criticism, he shifts the focus of the conversation, or even questions the intention behind the criticism. This completely breaks the flow. It's a calculated use of force, only on a psychological level. Another simple example. Someone says, "You always do it wrong." Most would respond, "No, I don't." He replies, "Interesting that you see it that way." See, he doesn't accept the label, nor does he fight against it. He simply shifts the game. This is politics guided by reality, not by ideals. It's not about being right. It's about maintaining control of perception. And over time, he understands that framing isn't just a defense technique. It's a leadership tool. Whoever controls the framing defines how things are interpreted. And whoever defines the interpretation controls the emotion, the decision, and the outcome. That's virtù and fortuna working together, skill plus timing. But there's an even deeper point. When you master framing, you don't need to convince anyone. You simply lead, and that eliminates the need to pursue, to insist, to chase after approval. Because whoever is in control doesn't pursue, they attract. And it's precisely here that the game changes completely, because from that point on, he realizes that chasing not only weakens, but also destroys the value that could have been built in silence. He realizes, almost as if with a shock of reality, that pursuing something has never been a sign of strength. It has always been a sign of scarcity. Those who chase after something, even with good intentions, transmit an invisible message. I need this more than you do. And in the game of power, this perception changes everything. Machiavelli already made it clear, indirectly, that it is better to be feared than loved, but above all, better to be desired than overly available. Because excessive availability destroys value. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows exactly that. No matter how competent, interesting, or valuable you are, if you are always accessible, always available, always ready, you lose weight. And the curious thing is that this doesn't happen logically. It happens because of human nature. What is rare attracts. What is too abundant tires. He starts applying this to practical situations, and the results are almost uncomfortably clear. Instead of immediately responding to every message, he waits. Instead of always initiating conversation, he leaves space. Instead of constantly offering himself, he strategically withdraws. And the effect? People start coming to him. They ask more questions, show more interest, try to make more contact. This isn't cheap manipulation. It's a deep understanding of how value is perceived. It's the calculated use of power in the invisible field of attention. Think of a simple example. Someone who responds to everything immediately versus someone who responds when they decide. Who seems busier? Who seems more valuable? The answer is obvious, and this has nothing to do with arrogance. It has to do with positioning. Decisions based on real human nature, not on idealizations about always being accessible. But there's a detail he learns over time. It's not about disappearing completely. It's about calibrating presence. Strategic retreat, not abandonment. That's virtù and fortuna, knowing the exact moment to advance and the exact moment to retreat, because whoever retreats at the right moment creates tension, and tension generates movement. The other person begins to fill the space, to search, to invest energy. And when someone invests energy, they get involved. And when they get involved, they value it. It's a silent but extremely powerful cycle. And the more he understands this, the more he realizes he doesn't need to fight for attention. Just know where and when to appear. And it's precisely here that a new layer of the game emerges, because it's not enough to know when to appear. You need to know how to enter any environment and dominate it effortlessly. He begins to realize that most people enter any environment already wanting to speak, to position themselves, to show their worth. And without realizing it, they completely give themselves away. It's almost automatic. They enter the room and they already want to be seen. But those who understand the game know that true power begins before the first word. Machiavelli already pointed out, implicitly, that decisions based on real human nature require observation before action. Because every room has an invisible dynamic, who dominates, who follows, who observes, who tries to stand out. And whoever enters speaking without understanding this, enters blind. Politics, guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches exactly this. It doesn't matter how you would like the environment to be. What matters is how it actually works. And whoever understands this doesn't need to compete for space. They simply occupy it at the right moment. He starts testing this in simple situations. He enters a meeting, for example. Instead of immediately offering his opinion, he observes who speaks the most, who is listened to, who interrupts, who avoids conflict. These small signs reveal everything. It's almost like watching a game before stepping onto the field. And when he decides to speak, he's no longer trying to understand the environment, he already understands it. This completely changes how others perceive him. He seems more confident, more precise, more dangerous. This is calculated use of force. It's not about speaking louder, but speaking at the right moment. Another example, in a new group, while everyone tries to stand out, he remains quieter at first. He observes patterns, alliances, tensions, and when he finally acts, he already knows exactly where to step. This isn't shyness, it's strategy. And with time, he understands something even deeper. Those who read the environment don't need to fight for control. Control comes naturally. Because he already knows where the weaknesses are, where the opportunities are, and above all, where the mistakes of others are. This is virtu and fortuna working together, reading ability plus perfect timing. And it is here that he realizes a crucial detail. The more you talk at the beginning, the more predictable you become. And predictability is vulnerability. That's why the most strategic reveal little, speak little, and observe a lot. Because information is power, and whoever collects more than they give always comes out ahead. And when this becomes natural, a new need arises, not only to observe, but also to know exactly how much to reveal and how much to hide. He begins to understand that total transparency, despite seeming virtuous, can be extremely dangerous. Not because being honest is wrong, but because being completely predictable is a weakness. Machiavelli already made it clear, when discussing the appearance of virtue, that not everything should be revealed as it truly is. Because the world doesn't function solely based on truth, it functions based on perception. And whoever reveals everything hands over their own operating manual for anyone to use against them. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows exactly that. People observe patterns, and when they understand their pattern, they begin to predict their movements. And when they can predict, they can manipulate. It's that simple. Mystery isn't a game, it's protection. He begins to apply this in his daily life, almost like a silent experiment. Instead of sharing all his plans, he shares only what is necessary. Instead of expressing all his opinions, he selects what he says, and especially what he doesn't say. And the effect is immediate. People begin to project more than he actually shows. This is the calculated use of power in the field of perception. Think of someone who talks all the time. You understand exactly how that person thinks. Now think of someone who talks less, but with precision. You start trying to decipher, and whoever tries to decipher gets involved. And whoever gets involved loses objectivity. This is virtu and fortuna, using the right timing to reveal enough to generate interest, but never enough to be completely understood. But there's an even deeper point. He realizes that not showing all your cards isn't just about others. It's also about maintaining internal control. When you reveal everything, you commit to everything, and that reduces your constant adaptability. Now, when you maintain margin, space, silence, you maintain freedom. Freedom to change, adjust, retreat, advance. And in the real game, those who are flexible survive more than those who are rigid. Decisions based on real human nature demand exactly that: constant adaptation. And the less you reveal, the more room you have to move without being pressured. And this is where he realizes something curious. When you become less predictable, others begin to underestimate you. And for those who understand the game, that's not a problem. It's an absurd advantage. He realizes over time that being underestimated is one of the greatest privileges one can have, provided one knows how to use it. Most people desperately strive to appear strong, intelligent, dominant, and without realizing it, raise the guard of everyone around them. Machiavelli already suggested this when he spoke about the calculated use of force and the appearance of virtue. Showing power is not always the best path. Often it's about hiding it, because when others believe you pose no threat, they relax. And when they relax, they make mistakes. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows this with brutal clarity. The world is neither fair nor balanced. It is full of distractions, egos, and overconfidence. And whoever understands this doesn't need to prove anything. They just wait. He begins to apply this almost invisibly. Instead of constantly asserting himself, he observes more. Instead of correcting every mistake others make, he lets them pass, not out of inability, but as a strategy. In competitive environments, while everyone tries to show superiority, he maintains a more restrained profile. And this creates an illusion. Others begin to see him as someone ordinary, predictable, even harmless. That's exactly where the real game comes in, because while others expose themselves, he gathers information. While others compete, he understands the pattern, and when he finally acts, he acts with precision. This is virtù and fortuna in their most refined form, patience plus execution at the right moment. Think of a simple example. Someone who always speaks less in meetings, but when they do speak, they solve the problem. Over time, this person no longer needs to compete, they simply dominate. But there's a crucial detail he learns. Being underestimated is only an advantage if there's action afterward. It's not about hiding, it's about choosing when to show up. Because if you just fade into the background, you disappear. But if you strategically hold back, you surprise. And surprise in the power game is one of the strongest weapons. Decisions based on real human nature show that people trust the pattern, and breaking the pattern generates impact. And it's precisely this impact that changes the game. Because after you reveal your true level, it's too late for others to react. And when that happens a few times, you don't need to prove anything anymore. Reputation starts working for you. And at that point, he understands that there's something even more important than external strategy. It's internal management. Because in the end, it's not just the enemies who drain you. Often it's those closest to you. He begins to realize something uncomfortable, almost awkward to admit. The greatest risk doesn't always come from declared enemies. Often it comes from people close to him, people who don't attack directly, don't confront, don't oppose, but drain him, little by little, in conversations that are too long, in constant complaints, in emotional demands that never end. And the problem isn't just time, it's energy. Because energy is focus, it's clarity, it's the ability to decide. Without it, even the best strategy fails. Machiavelli already pointed out, even indirectly, that having your own loyal armies is essential, and, translating this to real life, it means your circle needs to strengthen you, not weaken you. Politics, guided by reality, not by ideals, demands facing this coldly. Not everyone deserves access, and keeping the wrong people close has a silent but devastating cost. He starts doing something most people avoid, a relationship audit. He observes who, after an interaction, leaves him feeling lighter and who leaves him exhausted. It seems simple, but it changes everything. Because from then on, he starts adjusting access. He doesn't need to dramatically cut everyone off. That would be impulsive. He simply reduces it. Less time, less exposure, less availability, calculated use of force, once again. A practical example. That person who always brings problems, never solutions. Instead of confronting them directly, he starts limiting interactions. Shorter answers, less openness, less involvement. Another example, draining environments, like groups where there's only complaining. He simply withdraws little by little. This isn't selfishness, it's strategy, because whoever doesn't protect their energy ends up being controlled by those who consume it. And it is here that he understands something even deeper. Protecting energy is protecting power. Because without energy, there is no presence. Without presence, there is no influence, and without influence, everything else loses value. Better to be feared than loved may apply in certain contexts, but here there is an even more important rule. Better to be selective than accessible. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean pleasing everyone. It means not exposing oneself unnecessarily. And when he begins to apply this consistently, something changes. He becomes more centered, clearer, more unshakable, because he's no longer reacting to the environment. He is choosing where to be. This is constant adaptability in its most refined form. And when this inner foundation strengthens, the final stage emerges. Not just controlling reactions, words, or environment, but becoming someone who simply cannot be controlled. Looking back, he realizes that each of the previous strategies wasn't isolated. It was part of a system. Not reacting, not explaining, ignoring, controlling the framing, not pursuing, observing, revealing little, accepting being underestimated, and protecting energy. All of this builds something bigger, a kind of presence that cannot be easily read. And when someone cannot be read, they cannot be controlled. Machiavelli already spoke about the importance of constant adaptability, and here this manifests itself completely. Because the predictable man is manipulable. The reactive man is manipulable. The man lacking validation is manipulable, but the one who masters himself becomes uncontrollable. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows exactly that. The world tests patterns, and when it doesn't find a pattern, it doesn't know how to act. He begins to notice this in the simplest interactions. People try to fit him into a profile and fail. They try to provoke him and get no reaction. They try to understand him and find no clear answers. This generates a curious effect: silent respect. It's not a respect based on sympathy nor on exaggerated charisma. It's a respect based on uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds caution. This is the calculated use of force at the most advanced level. It's not about attacking, it's about being impossible to predict. Think of someone who always reacts the same way. You learn to deal with that person. Now think of someone who responds differently to each situation, always with control. You don't know how to act with them, and when you don't know, you retreat. This is virtù and fortuna operating together. Inner mastery, plus external timing. But the most important point isn't the external effect, it's the internal one. Because becoming unshakable doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means not being governed by the environment. Decisions based on real human nature show that the world will always try to pull you towards emotional patterns: anger, need for validation, haste, insecurity. And whoever gives in loses control, but whoever observes, chooses, and acts with intention builds something rare, a stability that doesn't depend on anyone. And that's exactly what transforms everything. Because in the end, it's not about dominating others, but about not being dominated. And when you reach that point, the game changes, the interactions change, the opportunities change, and without realizing it, you stop being someone who reacts to the world and become someone who shapes the world around you. Now let me ask you a direct question. How many times have you lost control simply because you reacted too quickly? How many times have you tried to explain yourself and ended up looking even weaker? Do you see the pattern? It wasn't a lack of intelligence. It wasn't a lack of ability. It was a lack of strategy. The world is not against you. He only responds to what you show him. If you react, he's testing you. If you explain yourself, he questions you. If you give yourself too much, it consumes you. But when you pause, when you choose, and when you control, something changes. People start measuring their words around you. They'll start thinking twice before provoking you. They start observing you more than you observe them. And here's the point that most people ignore. This isn't about manipulating others. It's about never being manipulated again. So now, I really want to tease you. From today onwards, will you continue reacting as you always have? Or will you start observing before acting? Are you going to keep explaining yourself to people who don't deserve it? Or will you begin to position yourself with silence and precision? Because in the end, no one will give you power. Either you build or you remain controlled. If this content made you think, really think, then it doesn't stop here. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, because in the next videos, you'll start to see things that previously went completely unnoticed. And when you start to see, you'll never be the same again.